Okay, welcome to the Talkin ATL Hawks podcast. Let's go, the Hawks. So
First
my name is
episode,
John
baby.
Joyner, and my two co-hosts are. This is
I'm Andrew. I'll introduce myself. I'm Andrew Jessen. I've been a longtime Hawks fan. My earliest moment of the Atlanta Hawks is back in the ISO Joe days. Just to put in perspective, I'm a senior in college. I've been watching since I was in elementary school, man. Fifth grade year. That's when I really started getting to Hawks basketball. So I'm well in depth with this team. It's brought me a lot of joy and great moments, but at the same time, it's made me want to do things to myself. So yeah, but we'll get into all that. It's all right. It's all right. I'll let Chase take the cake now.
Hey man, listen. As true Hawks fans, we've experienced the true ups, the true downs.
Yeah.
But if you can't tell, me and Andrew are twins, so we're brothers. And of course, John Joyner, we know him from college, good friends from the University of West Georgia. All get together. We decided to start a podcast, the Atlanta Hawks podcast, so we can come on here on a weekly basis and just talk about our beloved Atlanta Hawks. We're all three diehard Hawks fans. Andrew kind of just explained it. Since we were little, man, we've been repping the Hawks since from young we can remember. I decided to wear a throwback Dennis Schroeder jersey to start the podcast journey. All the real Hawks fans know the Schroeder and Dwight Howard days. But to kind of start the very first episode, it's going to be more of an introduction type base. Just kind of introduce ourselves. We're going to open it up, kind of talk about our favorite Hawks players currently and our favorite Hawks players all time. And then to end the podcast, we'll conclude it by, reviewing this upcoming season that starts this Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets. Kind of talk about what we expect from the Atlanta Hawks. What are some things from last year that we could have potentially improved on in the offseason? What, preseason officially wrapped up for the Hawks, so we'll kind of discuss what we liked, what we saw from the number one overall pick. And maybe some key players that we could watch out for and just kind of take notice on. So I guess to start, Joyner, we're going to open it up, man. The season is right around the corner. Who is your current favorite Hawks player and why?
My current favorite Hawks player right now, I have to go with Jalen Johnson.
Nice.
Obviously, for starters, like JJ, when he and I had the same initials. Jalen Johnson, John Joyner. That's one thing.
Okay.
But his just style of play, I really like it. It's the way like he complements Trae Young so well. I'm so looking forward to see how he improves the season with Trae Young and the other guys on the floor.
I'll go, Jordan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, sorry. You go ahead. No, sorry. I was done there.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll just go and move on. Listen, my initial twin has moved on. He's actually not even in the NBA anymore. AJ Griffin, Lord bless his soul. He's dealing with a lot of personal things. Forced him to retire just out of just a whole bad mental state. Really feel bad for the guy. He had such good potential his rookie season. But listen, my initial twin no longer in the league, but I gotta nod my head. I know this is gonna sound very generic, but I have always been a big fan of Trae Young. As a matter of fact, if you go up in my bedroom, I have a poster of him hushing the Madison Square Garden crowd back in the 2021 immaculate playoff run. We'll talk about that at some point in the podcast, but Trae Young, it's an interesting thing for me. Trae Young, in his early years was really able to establish himself as a floor general. He's a shot creator too. He has deep range. He's just a utility threat. We honestly know his strong suit is passing the ball. He can rack up 10, 15 assists on a really good night, but consistently finds teammates and finds the open man. And he, like I said, he's a floor general. He's a space creator as well. His off-ball movement also leads to creating space for teammates to either get a quick early jumper or to even move inside the paint, throw up a lob back in the John Collins days. Now with Jalen Johnson, like you said, John. So it's interesting. We saw really I don't want to say the downfall of Trae Young, but the worst side of Trae Young back when DeJounte Murray was on the floor, because those are two floor generals who just couldn't find the connection with each other on the court. They were always better when they were ISO'd by themselves. And now that Trae Young has this team back in full control, I really think we see Trae Young recovering from the injury, really elevate himself to what we saw in the first 5 years of his career, because that talent has not gone anywhere. He just got to reestablish himself as the identity, the true floor general for this Hawks team. And like you said, John, including Jalen Johnson, we have so many young guys around this team that I feel like could really complement to Trae Young's play style. So I basically, in the grand scheme of things, I love Trae Young because I feel like he makes everybody around him so much better because of the plays he can create for them. So I know, like I said, I know it's generic. Can't hide it though. I'm a big Trae Young guy.
Yeah,
it's chilly. I like it when it gets a little chilly,
Yeah, I mean, like no hating. Like you can't like not like pick the best guy to be a favorite player, but like,
yeah,
no hating there whatsoever. But Chase?
The funny thing is, Andrew, I know you remember this, but Joyner actually, I don't know if you had the same reaction as me and Andrew, but I remember draft night when the Hawks drafted Trae Young. Me and Andrew personally, we were so upset with the pick. We watch a lot of college basketball, and I saw a lot of Trae Young at Oklahoma, and there was a lot of his game that I did not like. So actually, when the Hawks drafted Trae Young, I was upset, and the person I wanted more than anybody was Marvin
Bagley,
who went to Sacramento, and you watch him now, and he's really not rising up to the player that his expectations had him labeled heading into that draft night. But
he's on the Pistons now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on the Pistons now.
I thought it was in Washington. I think he's in Washington.
He's on Washington.
Oh, he might be right. John, you might be right.
I think he left in free agency or some trade happened. I don't know exactly, but I think he's on Washington. We can look at that later. But
yeah,
I think you're right. I think he went from Sacramento to Detroit to the Wizards. You might be right. We'll double check on that. But
I'm pretty sure like he was traded from Sacramento to Detroit, but
yeah,
I think he left the free agency to Washington. But
hey,
you're right.
Us not knowing where he's at proves your point of irrelevancy. This is why
exactly.
It just proves your point, Chase.
But it's kind of funny watching Trae Young. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is either his 7th or 8th year in the league.
8th. No, 7th.
Is it 7th? I think it's a 7th year in the league.
Wait.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. 7th or 8th. But like watch him through the years and how my mindset on him has completely flip-flopped. And I think what really just changed my mind about Trae Young from watching him at Oklahoma and how he's progressed to the NBA is, like you said, it's what he does outside of shooting. He's become more of a playmaker and a floor general instead of just a highlight show like he was in college. And he's all about getting his teammates involved. And to answer who my favorite player is, I love me some Trae Young, but I'm going to have to agree with my man John Joyner over here, Jalen Johnson.
Okay.
The man he has become and how the big leap he took last season and how he was involved with this Hawks team. And I think what's really helped him kind of showcase and highlight him as his own big name player on the Hawks is what he did off the ball when Trae Young had the ball. He became more of a he was more involved in the plays. When Trae Young had the ball, he was outside of DeJounte Murray, which, like you said, Andrew, that was kind of a mess. But outside of DeJounte Murray, Jalen Johnson became a reliable asset for Trae Young. And he replaced what John Collins used to be. In my opinion, he is a more versatile John Collins. He was the man Trae Young could find on the lob. He was his transition guy. He was off the ball movement, and his three-point shooting is better than John Collins. And what I'm most excited to see about Jalen Johnson this upcoming season, I actually have to compliment Quinn Snyder on this. Now, I love the Quinn Snyder hire out of Utah, and I think one thing, especially what we saw this preseason, which, again, we'll get into a little bit more later, but I just want to highlight a little bit here. This preseason, what I'm noticing out of Quinn Snyder is one thing about this Hawks team that he is stressing the most is more off-ball movement, because we're not seeing it from just Jalen Johnson. We are seeing it from everybody on the court now. And watching the preseason, it seemed like Trae Young's job got easier, and that when he was a playmaker on the court, when he was a floor general, he's not just having one or two guys that he can rely on. Everybody on the court with him is involved in off-the-ball movement, and that's just expanded our offense so much more. And I think because of that, Jalen Johnson's going to have less of a load on his shoulder, and this should allow him to elevate into an even better player than he was just a season before. So for that reason, I am absolutely ecstatic to watch Jalen Johnson on the court this upcoming season. So Joyner, I'm going to throw it back to you. Like you said, Jalen Johnson is your favorite player currently. Who is your favorite all-time Atlanta Hawks player?
I got to go with one of the top three-point shooters of all time. I think you know who I'm thinking of.
Yes,
Kyle Korver.
Yes,
Kyle
baby.
Korver.
For Zeus.
Heck yeah, I got to go with Kyle Korver.
Love that guy.
Just, white guy shooting,
doing his thing, man.
Yeah, doing his thing. Watching that, like, I don't remember how many points it was, but it was like a certain amount of points in 60 seconds was pretty.
11 points.
Game. He hit 4 threes in 60 seconds.
Yeah. No, 12. I'm sorry, that was bad math. 12 points in 1 minute. Sorry.
Right, yeah, so it was like 4 threes, and that just comes to show you what kind of guy he was, and like how he impacted Atlanta, and like just that one 2015 season when we went 16-22.
Yeah.
Just that tough season where the tragically ended when we got swept in the playoffs by LeBron and the Cavs. But we sent like 4 guys to the All-Star game. If y'all remember that, it was Korver,
Al Horford,
Jeff Horford,
and then Paul
Millsap, and who's the other guy we sent?
That's 4, right? Kyle Korver, Jeff T, Paul Millsap, and Al Horford.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I thought we sent DeMar Carroll too, but I guess not. But yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't on that team, but Lord, DeMar Carroll was good.
Yeah, for sure. Like the whole starting 5 was like incredible. Just injuries, and plus LeBron. I mean, you can't deny LeBron's greatness. But
what can you do? What can you do?
Yeah, no. I mean, like, just making that far. It's pretty impressive in itself. And going 16-22, that's. That's pretty good. But I know, like Kyle Korver, just how he is. Just like how he was with the shooting, how he impacted Atlanta, and now I'm just like now that he's involved with our front office too.
Yes.
Yes.
Like that's awesome, and it sucks that he couldn't get a ring. I thought he could get one with the Bucks or with the Cavs when we traded him.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't. But you can't always win a ring. So but he will still be one of the greatest shooters to ever do it, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and I really thought. Oh, I was just saying. Sorry. I'll back off.
No. I'll let you talk. I was going to throw real quick. He's still top 15 in the NBA on most 3-pointers made of all time. He's still top 15.
That's
but Jordan, I'm glad you brought up how he's still involved in the Hawks front office, because I think it just really shows. He went a lot of places in the league. Drafted by the Sixers, spent a lot of time in Utah, Chicago. Went back to Utah towards the end of his career, like you said. The Cavs,
like I said, Bucks.
Yeah, Bucks. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, but Cleveland. Well, first Cleveland, because we traded him to Cleveland for who we got. I think we just got like picks and stuff.
Yeah,
I think it was just picks. Yeah,
but
I remember that night vividly. The night he got traded.
My heart broke. I was crying. I was like, no, not Korver. Anyone but Korver, really. But
It was so depressing. I remember we were playing in New Orleans when they made the announcement that Kyle Korver was just traded. And my dude, I like you said, John, I was almost in tears just because of how much fun he was watching. But I think him being involved in the front office just really showcases what he means to Atlanta and what Atlanta means to him. Because in the grand scheme of things, he was great in Utah. He was great in Chicago. But he was really established himself as the high key or the key mark 3-point shooter. And the consistency really just generated into who he was in his Atlanta days. But I guess I'll get into mine. I kind of highlighted him at the start of the show. He was dubbed ISO Joe, baby. Joe Johnson. Look, he had a really fruitful NBA career, and that was really thanks to his ability to get buckets from all three levels of the floor. And his move to Atlanta in 2005, just like Kyle Korver, really helped break him out, fashioning a really nice career for himself as one of the more reliable scorers in the league for really the next decade. And Johnson played for the Hawks from 2005 all the way up into 2012, making the playoffs 4 times, I believe, during that span. But the Hawks made it past the first round in all but one of those seasons, with Johnson acting as the team's first option on offense while being surrounded by quality players like Al Horford, Josh Smith, and Jamal Crawford. And Joe Johnson, an interesting thing that I found out is that he ranked 6th on the all-time Hawks scoring list, and he was a 6-time All-Star with the team as well. And he also made the All-NBA third team back in 2010. And that's not a shabby at all for, the best player of the Hawks team in the, mid to late 2000s run that is now known for running the treadmill of mediocrity and low-end playoff contention. So Joe Johnson, he was just a quality guy all around. But Chase, I'm interested to hear who your favorite all-time Hawks player is.
Now, when you look at the Hawks all time, I think there's one man that stands alone. This is probably an obvious and generic pick, but there's more of a reason why he is my favorite Hawks player of all time. We all know who it is. The human highlight reel. Is it real or film? Did I just bring that?
It's real. It's real.
Okay, I'm not sure. It's a human highlight reel. Yeah. I for some reason, I couldn't remember if it was film or real. Yeah, the human highlight reel. Dominique Wilkins. Now, you look at Dominique Wilkins and his time with Atlanta, and really just his time throughout the NBA and how much he just changed the game. Of course, this was back in the era when dunking was like the most popular thing. Jordan was changing the game, and Larry Bird at the time was still in the league with Dominique Wilkins. Of course, obviously, I don't remember it, but all the old head Hawks fans remember the 1988. Yeah, it was 1988. Eastern Conference Finals that went to 7 games. That is considered one of the greatest conference final series of all time between Dominique Wilkins and Larry Bird. Well, unfortunately, the Celtics edged us out. That was Dominique Wilkins' closest chance he ever had to a ring, unfortunately. However, he just changed the game in terms of the way dunking was involved. He really helped establish what we know as the big man style of play today. But what makes Dominique Wilkins my personal favorite is what he's doing now in Atlanta. I love how he is still involved in the Hawks community and just the Atlanta community in general. Of course, we all know growing up and even now still today, watching Hawks fans and watching Hawks games and him paired up with Bob Rathbun on the broadcast, sharing his knowledge of the game on Fox Sports, Bally Sports, whatever it's going to be in the future, paired with Bob Rathbun. I love watching him every Hawks game, but I also love what he's doing in the community. Of course, keeping up this offseason, he just opened, 3 different basketball locations throughout the Atlanta area. Yeah. He's always involved in these local Atlanta charities, and he's making his mark on just what he did. Now, he's a Georgia boy. He played basketball at the University of Georgia, spent most of his career with the Atlanta Hawks until he went to the Celtics towards the end of his career. But he's just an Atlanta man. He's a homegrown boy, and he's still continuing to leave that mark on the community. And I love that he's still involved now as he was when he was a player, and that just makes him a personal favorite of mine, not just of what he did during his legendary career, but what he's doing now as a retired NBA legend. And then me and Andrew actually bumped into him at a Hawks game. It was the most awkward interaction ever. About 2 years ago, we went to a
Yeah.
Hawks game, and we were going to the bathroom, and this was because Bob Rathman and Dominique, they broadcast the games from the concourse level now instead of the court. So they had their little area set up on the concourse, and our seats were like right below where they were calling the game. So we got up and used the bathroom, and I wasn't paying attention. I turned around and I bumped into somebody, and I look up and it's Donnie Wilkins. He goes, "My bad, buddy," and just walks right by. And I was like, dude, I legit just I just bumped into Dominique Wilkins' head to the bathroom. And it was like, I didn't have a chance to say hi because I was just looking at this big, massive dude. I'm like, yo, that's like the most random interaction I've ever had. But I mean, it was sick. Technically my shoulder hit Dominique Wilkins, so I can't say that. But, that was really cool. But, I guess, we've introduced ourselves. We talked about our favorite current Hawks player, our favorite Hawks of all time. Joyner, I'm going to pass it to you first. This Wednesday, we are just days away from the Hawks opening their season against the Brooklyn Nets in State Farm Arena. Joyner, I have to ask you, what can you expect from the Hawks this season? What are your expectations? And what's one thing that maybe everybody listening and Hawks fans all around that they can look out for? Any sneaky players on the roster this year?
Well, first off, I expect to win. Because Brooklyn, they lost. Because Brooklyn just traded away Mikal Bridges to the Knicks, so they're down to their best guy. So I expect to win. Obviously, I'm very interested to see how Shea plays in his first game.
Yes.
I'm very interested to see how Trey compliments him and Jalen Johnson and the other guys that would be on the court. But also, I'm really interested to see how our bench unit plays and see how much time they'll get to play because obviously I want to see a double O play Nneka Okongwu.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to see him play. Play some big minutes off the bench. We still don't know who's going to start at the three, either DeAndre Hunter or Shea. Well, I'm praying it's Shea, but also I wouldn't be mad if it's Hunter just to get Zachary Shea to keep the pressure off of him.
Yeah.
But him, Kobe Buffkin, who played phenomenal in that last last preseason game.
Preseason.
I have to see more Kobe Buffkin.
We got to see more Kobe. U2 guy as well. He was our rookie last year, so was just taking that U2 step. And then just overall, I just want to see a big win this Wednesday.
We should beat the Nets. My expectations are high that game. If you look at Brooklyn's roster, outside of Dennis Schroeder, they really have nobody. In fact, you said Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, exactly. They traded him. Really the only guy that can hit him on the team now is Claxton. That's the only guy.
Claxton. Yeah. It's interesting. I have a little bit of animosity built towards Brooklyn. when Chase and I, along with two other guys from the university, had a chance to go to New York last March. Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking it was January. Yeah, it was March. You're right. And we got the chance to see, the Hawks were in Brooklyn to face the Nets while we were there. So we were like, why don't we just go and buy tickets and, check out a little Hawks game? And Kobe Buffkin, funny enough, had a really good performance. He had a lot of playing time due to a lot of injuries that we had surrounding the team. Trae Young was one of those injuries, so we didn't get to see him, unfortunately. So we got to see DeJounte take the court. And, Kobe Buffkin, I think Chase was about to say this, might have been the best performance of his rookie season. Unfortunately, the Hawks got destroyed by the Nets. Like I said, a lot of injuries had to do with that, but Dennis Schroeder played really well. Funny enough, you brought him up. Nick Claxton had a really big game. But here is my big question for the Atlanta Hawks coming into the season. Just to note real quick, all the offseason moves that we made, with the additions, including draft picks, Zachary Richardshire, Nikola Drusic, Dyson Daniels, who had a really good preseason.
Did we get rid of our second round draft pick? I didn't see him on the preseason roster. I think we got rid of him.
He might be demoted.
I think he might be on our G League. I think
he might be demoted to the
Skyhawks. I think he's on the Skyhawks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we got.
Like as long as we kept him, because I don't know, I don't see why like we draft him and then he just gets cut. I mean,
he's just one of those guys that I think he's not NBA ready per se. We
right?
really
Yeah,
have
that's
to
what I
really.
felt. Yeah.
Yeah. We just have to kind of let him develop his own play style, and then we can figure out based on his G League performance how we can best utilize him going forward. But a lot of people also forget that we got the old vet Cody Zeller on the team. It'll be interesting to see how many minutes he gets this year. David Rhodey, Keaton Wallace, Dominique Barlow. But my biggest question, with all those acquisitions aside, this has been the biggest hole that the Hawks have always been finding trouble to find the right submit to fill. Can the Atlanta Hawks build a decent defense around Trae Young? Now, I know, not exactly the most original question because, like I said, it's been a big problem for the Hawks for years to come. But despite the all-star pick and role playmaking, dynamic player that Trae Young has produced himself and the producing 3 top 10 finishes in offensive efficiency in 6 pro seasons, Atlanta has just won 45% of its games since drafting Trae Young. For those who don't know math, that's less than 50%. Now, the only season in which it has advanced beyond the opening round of the playoffs, as we mentioned before, the 2021 playoff run. Now, the only one in which it fielded a league average defense. So, what does that mean? If the Hawks aren't going to trade Trae Young, which we already determined that this offseason by keeping him around and shipping off DJ, and you'd only assume, which, a lot of us were probably assuming that we're going to keep Trae Young as well. But if they're not going to tank, which it's a safe bet considering the Spurs still control their 25, 26, and 27 first-round picks from the Murray trade, then they need to try to be pretty good this year, which, what a concept, right? That's how you win basketball games. Now, and that would seem to require building a more like tight defense than the unit has finished, because that defensive unit has finished bottom 5 in points, second per possession in 5 of the last 7 seasons. Now, there is a good news, and Chase, you did kind of nod towards this at the start of the podcast. Quinn Snyder has some tools to work with there. Jalen Johnson, we've already talked about him a lot. He has raised eyebrows with his offensive breakthrough in his 3rd season. 16 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, and 3.6 assists per game, shooting 68% at the rim and 38% on above the break 3-pointers. And the 7-foot wingspan made his presence felt on the other end too, averaging 4.4 combined steals, blocks, and deflections per 36 minutes of floor time. And he's a player with the size and quickness to guard either forward spots who are also able to grab a quarter of available defensive rebounds when he helps the team, just by eating up a lot of the space on the court. So with Jalen on the floor, the Hawks largely kind of reflect good defensive possessions allowed, and we've even allowed nearly 4 fewer points per 100 possessions when Jalen Johnson has been on the court. And then, you look at the leadership and versatility and the active hands that he constantly possessed, along with the elite skill routes for a big man. And another guy that I want to note, and I think he's really been kind of lurking in the shadows in the preseason, and that's Daniels. And he's one of those guys that if he can establish a jumper, like we saw when he was with the Pelicans, shooting 31% and 36% from shot corners, he can be a perfect fit next to Young in the backcourt, taking one of the toughest defensive assignments while serving as a complementary player and off-ball cutter on offense. So between Jalen Johnson, Daniels, Nance, DeAndre Hunter, that's a lot of defensive options to deploy in the project of insulating Trae Young now that he's got the team kind of by himself. So this is my best case scenario for the Hawks. The new arrivals, they produce something like, let's just say, the 18th best defense in the NBA, marking this edition of the Hawks as somewhat more serious than what we've seen in the last couple of years. With that steady backcourt behind him, Young can rip off a face mask or, and just put on a solo regular season performance that we've seen in the year, leading the league in scoring and assists as he vaults Atlanta back into the top 3 in points per possessions. Now, so with Trey at the control center, Jalen Johnson earning some all-star buzz, Zachary Richshire, the number 1 pick, showing promise, and Bodan Bogdanovic, eyeing the 6th man of the year, the Hawks, they have the potential to blow past a 500 record all the way to maybe 46 to 50 wins, which is at least going to get them out of the lower half of the play-in bracket, and that shows progress. Now, before I switch to you, Chase, I want to know that if everything falls apart and we allow another disastrous defensive season that leads to progressively more rancid vibes in the Hawks locker room, I don't want to say it, but I think you can at least establish the idea that you can't build a winner around Young as he premates, the organization as a whole, because like I said before, he has a floor to himself, and we're reminded that progress isn't linear. As Jalen Johnson, he can't struggle to improve and build on his near most improved player breakout from last season now that he occupies a more prominent spot on the scoring report. So I feel like I know I've kind of talked for a while, but I really want to get the point across that I don't want to say it's do or die for the Hawks to get 50 wins, but I feel like with the defensive assets that we have around us now, it's going to be disappointing if we at least don't get close to that mark.
I don't know. To me, I feel like 50 wins might be a little much. Now,
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, here's what I want to do here. So, I don't know how many of y'all watched Trey Young's From the Point podcast that's now it's on Spotify. You can watch on Bleacher Report too.
I do
too. I like to tune in every now and then, every once in a while. And one of his more recent episodes over this off season, he was talking about his future with Atlanta, pretty much. He's kind of talking because a lot of people are asking him like, because this is back before we traded DeJounte Murray. So we didn't know if Trae Young was still going to be Atlanta Hawk this year or not. So people were asking, what do you know? Are you going to be a Hawk this year? How much longer are you going to put up with Atlanta? Your talent's being wasted here. And this is what he had to say. He goes, I love Atlanta. He said, I love Atlanta. It's been my home since I joined the NBA. I love the support. We 2021, we were get 2 games away from making the NBA Finals. And he goes, but I know, the talent that I have, and I know that this is my seventh. I think this is the 7th year in the NBA because I know it's my 7th year in the league, and I know time is limited, and I do have the desire to, win a ring. He goes, I'm not saying that's not possible in Atlanta, but what I am saying, if we have to go into another rebuild, I can't stay here to be here for it. I have to take my talents elsewhere, which is fair because Trae Young has already gone through a rebuild in Atlanta. So I think our GM, Landry Fields, took notice, and he did the smart thing this year. Back when the Hawks got DeJounte Murray, me and Andrew had a conversation, and we both agreed. We said this is either going to go really well or this is going to go disastrous. And what's going to cause us to be a disaster is these are 2 ball hawks, and we have seen it in the NBA over and over again. You cannot have 2 ball-hungry players on the court together. That's always a recipe for disaster. Now, Trae Young has been our franchise guy for the past couple of years. They made the right decision in shipping DeJounte Murray. And if you look at our roster, it is eerily similar to the exact same roster that we had in 2021 when we made our Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, the biggest name player that's not there anymore is John Collins. But who is just like John Collins, if not better? Ding, 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 Jalen Johnson. Now, here's the thing. Bench-wise, we are a lot weaker. But with the offense, I like the trade that we made with DeJounte Murray and who we got from the trade. Larry Nance Jr. is a little random. Don't know how I feel about that. But one player that I like more than ever is Dyson Daniels. He is a young 21-year-old coming from the Pelicans, but the biggest piece to his game is his defense. He was top in the league in steals. per game, which not a lot of people knew because his minutes were a little low. However, with the Hawks, he is a perfect asset on the bench. And you just said, Andrew, last year, Joyner, I know you can agree, defense was the weakest part on the team. The weapons are there. We watched the Hawks put up 130, 140 points a game and lose because of the little defense accusation. I think Dyson Daniels can be a big asset on that. Now, Joyner, I want to go back to what you said before we kind of wrap things up. You mentioned the fact, is it going to be Zachary starting or is it going to be DeAndre Hunter? Here's what I want to see from the Hawks. In my opinion, I think it would be best interest if we put DeAndre Hunter on the bench and let Zachary start right away. Because in the NBA, you got to let your rookie, he's going to be our franchise guy now. Him and Trae Young, if all goes well, could be the recipe paired with Jalen Johnson that can make the Hawks better than people expect. So you got to get Zachary on the court from the get-go and let him build his chemistry. And if we see in the preseason, they run like a well-oiled machine. And DeAndre Hunter is a perfect guy that we can add to the bench that's gotten weaker with the loss of Dejounte Murray. And if we look at DeAndre Hunter's recent history, he's been injured. He hasn't had a healthy season in 2 years, but we know how good he can be when he's fully healthy. So I'd say don't risk the fact of him getting re-injured, which he's done 2 years in a row. Let him come off the bench and help a weakened bench. Imagine having Zachary, if he plays anything like he did in the preseason, coming out doing his thing, and then who comes in for him? DeAndre Hunter. That would be so perfect. But I think that's what I want to see the Hawks leading into this opening night. And if all goes well, I think we can see a season where the Hawks don't make the play-in tournament, but instead get maybe a 6th or 5th seed. But ladies and gentlemen, that was kind of the recap we had for our first episode. Joyner, do you have any closing remarks before you want to send everybody home?
I just let me see real quick. Yeah, I did want to bring up one thing that I told you guys about. I told you guys about in our group chat.
I forgot about this.
Yeah, a Bleacher Report has posted as suggesting that the Hawks make a trade for Michael Porter Jr. Yes. I just want to get y'all's thoughts on that and like, what do you think we would give up? Would it be a big big name guy or what's your thoughts on that? I mean, personally, I kind of like our roster where it is. I mean, yes, he's good, but like, what would we give up?
I just thought about it.
So this is interesting. Really, really interesting. And Chase, I know this is kind of deplete what you were saying earlier, but on the flip the coin a little bit, it's going to be even better than what you proposed. Now, according to that report that you saw, Jason, from Bleacher Report,
Joyner, not Jason.
Yeah.
Did I call you Jason?
Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
My goodness, sorry. There's so many J names that go to our university.
Yeah, no, there is. It's insane. Right.
So, sorry, Joyner, John Joyner. Okay. So, as you mentioned before, based on that Bleacher Report, the Nuggets, if they were to trade off Michael Porter Jr., who has proven to be a big asset to them, especially in their postseason runs as of late, they would want bench debt or debt just to use like what you were proposing the Hawks do with Zachary and DeAndre Hunter. You could flip it either way. But regardless, the Nuggets want to improve on their bench debt. With Nikola Jokic, maybe, reunite him with the other Serbian, Bojan Bogdanovic, and a reverse forward in DeAndre Hunter. Now, I know you're shaking your head there, Chase, but let me just think this through. Because if we were to get a guy like Michael Porter Jr., sending them a forward like DeAndre Hunter is not going to be enough. You're going to need to throw in an asset that complements Nikola Jokic's game. And you know what does it the best? Chemistry. Bojan and Nikola Jokic have already displayed chemistry in overseas play, and it's the exact same scenario with the Atlanta Hawks. Because who has some of the most chemistry with Trae Young? Michael Porter Jr. And Trae Young has nodded this fact every time Michael Porter Jr. either comes to Atlanta or the Hawks go to Denver, because they have established a connection going all the way back to their youth and their AAU basketball days. This Trae Young and Michael Porter Jr. have been playing ball since they were teenagers. And even in college, Trae Young going to Oklahoma, Michael Porter Jr. going to Missouri. Even over the summer, they would train together, and this still goes on during the NBA offseasons. So it feels like it's kind of the writing in the stars for Trae Young and Michael Porter Jr. to end up on the same team one of these days. I'm not saying it's going to happen while Trae Young's in Atlanta or vice versa, Michael Porter Jr. in Denver, but I am saying it's a tough call to make, because the Nuggets are going to want more than DeAndre Hunter, who has proven that he can't stay healthy on a day-to-day basis. But give him a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic, who already has interconnection with Nikola Jokic, that might push him a little bit on the influence meter to send MPJ over to Atlanta, so Trae Young and Porter Jr. can reestablish that connection that's already been there. We just haven't seen it on an NBA court. So it would excite me, but because of the factors, I'm not sure if we would get a trade through.
Yeah, same.
I like the fact that getting rid of DeAndre Hunter. It's funny about that. Injury history is eerily similar. Those are two players that cannot have a healthy season, except last year. Michael Porter Jr. was very involved last year, but it's almost at the same rate. I just don't think that's giving up a worth getting rid of Bojan Bogdanovic, because the bench is weak in Atlanta this year. It's weaker than last year, and Bojan, he's chasing 6 man of the year. That is one guy we absolutely need on this team, and I would much rather have the insurance of having DeAndre Hunter and Bojan Bogdanovic sharing minutes, especially Hunter coming off the bench. And I feel like though Michael Porter Jr. and Trae Young paired together would be nice, we'd be taking too big of a hit on the bench and losing a big asset like Bojan Bogdanovic. He's been one of our better shooters on the team. I just don't see that. Taking the hit on the bench is not worth it, especially with the lack of defense and the Hawks already poised. That's something we can't afford to lose.
Yeah, I see your reasoning.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, too much to give up.
Yeah, and my thing is, like, and this is might seem like a dumb reason, but like the height, like Trae Young 6'1", Ricochet. According to the tweet, like the starting five would be Young, Ricochet, Porter, Johnson, and Capella. That's Trae Young, who's 6'1", 6'2". Ricochet, who's about like 6'8", 6'9", or 6'10", I think. Porter, who's around the same height. Johnson, 6'8", 6'7", and then Capella, who's 6'10". That's a lot of height compared to Trae Young, 6'1". I think me personally, like, we need to have like that balance of height to match the speed. Trae Young would be the only like fast guy on the court compared to Ricochet, Porter, Johnson, Capella, because they're big guys. So it would be like a bit slower. So like,
right, and that's a fair point.
Yeah,
and that's a fair point, and I think especially with the way the NBA is today, transition is a big thing on the Hawks, and there's a lot of players in line to help with our transition offense. Of course, Trae and JJ being the main pair, but you need some shooters out there. And I understand, Zachary shows a good 3-point shot. Trae, obviously, James Johnson too, but Bogey is solely a spot-up shooter. He's a catch-and-shooter, and that's a big asset that Trae Young desperately needs. And the Hawks in general, they need that guy, and they can just kick out beyond the three and know they can nail it. And, he's been a big asset in the Hawks since we got him in Atlanta, and I just feel it's way too much to lose,
He's the modern-day Kyle Korver, and I kind of forgot about this until now. We did kind of just extend him on a decently big contract. So it would be a waste of money as well. So I'm actually going to take back what I said, Chase. You taught me out of it. Michael Porter Jr., though, that would still be a dream come true. But I think given the assets of the contract and what he means to this team on the bench, I think you're right. I think it on paper, it seems like a high risk, high reward, but in reality, we'll be losing money in the process, and we'll be losing a lot more bench production than what we can afford to lose. So you might be right about that.
What if we get Michael Porter and he gets injured?
Yeah, it's always a possibility as well. And we don't have the bench depth to fill that hole either. So maybe
especially if we trade for him, absolutely the bench that's already weak would be even weaker.
Yeah. But John, do you have any other closing remarks you want to make before we wrap this first episode up?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Like that was the last thing I wanted to mention because we need to talk about that. Because Zach Langley, who's a Atlanta reporter, he does Falcons, Braves, and Falcons, Braves, and Hawks.
Big Atlanta guy.
Yeah, he's a big Atlanta guy. So, I just want to talk about that and just to get y'all's thoughts on that. But no, I think it's a good episode. I think it's a good starting episode.
Absolutely. Jordan, why don't you send us home?
Huh?
Why don't you send us home?
All right.
Oh, no, we lost him. The episode was literally just ending, and we lost him.
Jordan,
no.
Come back.
I guess I'll go ahead and send us home. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. Joyner literally last second. We lost him. But ladies and gentlemen, we just want to thank you so much for tuning in to our very first episode on the podcast. Next time we see y'all, we'll review how the Hawks start the season. We play the Nets and the Hornets this week. Hopefully, we should realistically be 2-0. Depends on how the defense looks. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. 8-Town, baby.